Hello everyone, thanks for coming outside with me today. It is the month of June. We were able to put in a food plot not too long ago, a little trap plot. And doing that video, it's a little windy today, sorry if the audio isn't great. Doing that video on that trap plot kind of got me thinking, well, maybe I should talk a little bit about tree stand placement. And if you're new to the sport of whitetail hunting, whether it be with a rifle or a shotgun or bow, why I put my tree stands where I do, why my tree stand locations have been successful, and why I've been able to harvest deer out of them. I hope this is informative for you. I hope I can be of service, and I guess without further ado, we can get started. So there are a couple things to consider before you start getting into the woods and put boots on the ground and do some really hardcore scouting. People say, I'm going to pattern this deer, I'm going to pattern this buck, I'm going to pattern his movements, I'll go right to that spot he always goes to, and bam, I'll harvest him. And to an extent that is true, but I think the thing that a lot of people forget is that a whitetail is a mammal, and mammals, sure, they have predictable habits, but we are mammals. And, you know, sure, every morning I might get up and have coffee, but then after my coffee, maybe I turn on the news, or maybe I go and get a shower. It's different, you know? And you need to keep that in mind when you're hunting with the intent of harvesting a whitetail, is that their patterns aren't 100% the same all the time. Here's my trap plot. I had deer coming in here every other day, sometimes 2 days in a row, 3 days in a row, sometimes not for weeks. And that's just something you have to be aware of. But there are three things that are always certain with deer, is that they always need a place to eat, a place to sleep, and a travel route from those two places. Big step number one is wind direction. 95% of the stands that I see go wrong are because they were put up hastily in a bad wind position. We're in central Pennsylvania. Most of the time our wind is from the south, the west, or the southwest. And today we have a pretty strong west wind. It's coming right up this power line, which means that anything on this side is downwind, and that's okay to set up over there. Up here we have on the northern side, so that means anything comes from behind you right now is south. So any south wind blows up this ridge, we could hunt over here. Anything down over the hill, it's kind of pointless to put a stand there. Because if we're on that side and we have a south wind or a west wind, it's blowing our scent right into this trap plot, right into this travel corridor. This power line is a big travel corridor, and we have an ATV trail, which I can show you a little bit later. That's also another man-made, but now the deer and the other wildlife use it, travel corridor. So wind direction is the number one biggest factor. Second biggest factor is going to be food, and it's just because, for me, it's just because that's everything needs to eat. Here are herbivores, so they're going to go to the choicest places where they enjoy those greens, those natural forbs and grasses, or in this case of this stand behind me, acorns. This is the only stand on this property, and this ridge runs back pretty far. It's a young, immature stand of white oak trees. There's a couple reds sprinkled in there as well. They don't produce acorns very often, but when they do, it is a deer gold mine. And turkeys come in here in the spring, it's all rooted up, it's all scratched up. When there's an acorn crop, this ridge is dynamite. I think the next biggest thing for me is travel routes. Bedding areas and travel routes, depending on the location of the property, can be the same in my eyes in terms of their importance. But in terms of this property is not very big. It has an old spring bed that's all dried up, and it just cuts the property right in half. And so travel corridors along this dried up spring gully are the biggest factor on this property. Travel corridors converge with other types of land that are appealing to the deer. So we have this ATV trail, which you probably can't make out too well on camera, but it's definitely here. ATV trail, power line right above us, acorn ridge, trap plot. We have two food sources, a big travel route, another travel route, all converging right here. This is going to be a dynamite stand location, and I arrowed a doe out of it last year. She was walking right down this ATV trail. She was coming down the ridge, and she popped out of the trail. She probably was going to make her way down, either into this trap plot or go down over the hill. Different styles of habitat converge and different trails converge. Those are the big places to look at it. And then you have to put your stand in a prevailing wind location. So knowing all these things, let's go look at some actual stands we have set up, some actual stand locations I've used, and they're all a little bit different, but they're all kind of the same because I'm following those same premises of travel, bedding, and food. So here we have stand site number 1. I don't have a stand in here right now. I don't really like to do hang-on stands. I have a couple ladder stands here on the property. But why is this spot important? So right here in front of me, this is the end of that spring, dried up spring bed. It comes down here and it ends up right here at this brush pile. Here is also the ATV trail. So we have an ATV trail that runs down, and this is the one that circumnavigates the property. And then this converges with the end of this gully here made by an old dried up spring. So when two habitats converge, that's the place you want to check out. In this case, it's 2 different travel corridors. Stand site number 2. I don't normally set up stands, like I said, that are permanent. More importantly, I don't really set them up for rifle season, but that's what this stand kind of is. And you can see how thick it is behind me. So during archery season, this isn't the world's greatest stand, although we have arrowed deer out of it before. But we kind of set it up so that way when rifle season comes in here in Pennsylvania in November, December time, when all this undergrowth is dead, we can have more access to this area, this open kind of travel corridor. So this one's strictly set up here, not on a food source and not on several different types of habitat changes, but just here on the ATV trail, which we've had deer come on before, and it's a 20-yard chip shot, if even that. But also it's predominantly set up for that later season hunt when the undergrowth is dead and deer just kind of picking their way through, moving between a very large food source, which is soybean and cornfields, and there's a big thick bedding area about another quarter mile back that way. And so this is a good humongous transition area during that later season time. It just got really windy all of a sudden, so apologies if the audio is off. We have a ladder stand right over my shoulder. You can see it. This is in perfect location. You can see again how thick this undergrowth is. It goes back into a neighboring property and it's just super thick and it's wonderful bedding cover. Here, down the trail here is that oak ridge, that acorn ridge. And actually this stand is set up on a big honking red oak tree. Although it hasn't dropped in a while, which is sad. ATV trail here converges with the one that makes the loop that circumnavigates the property. And so not only is this a convergence of 2 trails, but it's also an area where we have a transition between bedding cover and a food source. Okay? And then this travel route here is another one that also goes to the other trap plot that I have over there and the other side of the bedding area. Seeing a lot of animals out of here, we have had the opportunity, and I really think it's because we have this convergence of 2 trails. Granted, they're man-made, but that doesn't really matter. And we have bedding cover moving into a food source. So thanks for coming outside with me, everybody. I hope you're able to get out and take a walk through God's beautiful creation. Look for possible stand sites for the future. Really be thinking about those transitional areas, those travel routes between bed and food. And then also, of course, those transition areas or staging areas between those places, how the deer are going to get from those 2 points. You can key in on those points: natural land barriers, natural breaks and cover. That's what they're going to follow, the path of least resistance. So I hope that's able to help you. Hopefully maybe my locations will kind of give you an idea as to what's a good spot, a good place to try. And once again, I hope you're able to get out and enjoy God's beautiful creation, enjoy the sport of hunting, and we'll see you next time.